Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 4 of how to make hard house. Apologies, it's been a week or so since the last one. Been a little bit boring. Now all good. So we're going to crack straight on with this, because now what we're going to do is we're going to move into those mid-range sounds. We're going to move into starting to put some. I'm going to show you a couple of ways in which we're going to put in stabs, mid-range sounds, and I'm also going to show you something which is going to be a little bit different to how some of the other tutorials that I've seen show their methods of creating, I wouldn't say hooks yet, but certainly creating those mid-range sounds, the stabs, the grooves and things like that. And it's things that I've learned over the years, certainly in trance and hard trance, that I pulled over into making my hard house, my more recent hard house, which hopefully I think will give you a little bit more, give you some bursts of inspiration as well. So we had, where we left off last time, we left off with our loop. Just grooving over. What we've got here at the moment is just a 2-bar loop. I've not extended that over. I've actually shrunk it down from last time. It was on, I think, a 4-bar loop, just so that we can start to put in some stabs. I'm going to show you a couple of ways in which we can do that. So you've got the loop. You've done your EQ on your percussion. You've got your kick and your bass sitting quite nicely for now. And now we are going to go into putting in a method of putting in some stabs. So I will assume that you've got some sample banks of synth stabs, some hard house ones that you may have gone and bought from different places. Toolbox Digital, great place for some of these sample packs, and others. I mean, they're all on the internet. So what we'll do first is we will create, over on the right hand side, we will create a new MIDI channel. Make sure it's not in the group, make sure it's on its own. I'm going to make this, I like to make my stabs and stuff purple, but again, that's a different preference. Everyone's got their own preferences on that. What we're going to do here is we are going to go up to the bass line, and we're going to start off by just holding down control, and we're going to drag down our bass notes. So you can see our bass notes are on the key of F sharp, and they are sitting on this particular track, and they are sitting in the 1 in 1/8 notes from before. And what we're going to do now is we are going to come over here on the left hand side, and we're going to go to instruments, and we're going to go and put in a simpler. I like simpler, which will drop down the bottom there. We'll drag that onto the channel like we've shown before, and now from there we are going to go to our samples, and we're going to I'm not going to spend too much time on finding a sample. I just want to get you to a point of where we're going, just to show you a quick, easy way of getting started on creating some stabs that will start to roll along with your kick and your bass line and your percussion. Okay, so I'm going to take that one. I'm going to drag that in there. So if we listen to that on its own, we'll pull this down slightly in the mix on the volume here. We're going to pull this down to about, well, the same as most of the other things. We're going to put it down to about -8, similar sort of volume to the bass line. And as you can hear on its own, sitting in there, that will do. But what I will do here is I will go into it, I will right click, I will go to 1 16ths, and I want to shorten that. I want to make it a bit more stabby. So let's shorten it down. It's quite a nice little sound, actually. Let's just see what it sounds like with the kick on its and the percussion, kick, bass, and percussion. Our loop. Turn it up a little bit louder. Now, at the moment, we've just got that rolling along on the offbeat with the bass line. So now is the time when we can start to get a little bit more creative now. We can start to look at moving up and down the notes, utilising something which I will put a link in the description on my YouTube channel, which is there's something out there in for musicians, which is something that you learn if you go to music school, and if you learn the pianos or any instrument really, is something called the circle of fifths. I'm not going to go into too much detail on there because that's a whole nother tutorial. But I will put some links onto some good tutorials that you can go and check out and go and have if you want to do a little bit of homework on that, which I really do recommend, is to spend a bit of time just going through that. Now, what I would do is I'll just be playing around with this. I'm going to shrink the loop up here down to 1 bar. And if I'm messing around in the studio on my own, and I've got a little stab in there, and I've got my kick and my bass and my percussion going, I want to sort of like mess around with it a little bit. So let's just play the sound and mess around. Do here is I'm going to take this bottom note, but I'm going to bring it up the scale to where I think it should be. So this is where the circle of fifths comes in. You go up 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7 from your note. So count up 1, 2, 3. So the next one, that's going to go up to there, and that should sound right. Won't sound right there. Doesn't sound right there. So this is where, as I say, this is where the circle of fifths can come into play. Count up your notes in 3, 5, or 7 going up. It's not the same going down. That's why I want you to watch the tutorial, and I don't want to confuse your brain and say you're going, what? It's the same. It's right. It goes up in 3, 5, and 7, but doesn't go down the same way. It's something very, very worthwhile learning. I'll stop talking about that now. I'm going to start playing around. This is how I would mess around with some sounds. Then let's just copy. Whoop, don't do that. Just a nice little groove. Let's copy that across. I'm going very, very simple here. I'm not saying that this is something that you would actually do. I'm just giving you an example of how to get you started. You want to start writing some hard house. This is how you would. One of the ways in which you could start to get those layers to start building on top of your loop. Drag the loop across now. What we could probably do here is do okay. Let's just copy that across, the loop across here. And now let's turn this in from the 2 bar. I'm pressing Control D, highlighted the whole thing again, so that's the whole loop, kick, the bass, everything. And I'm going to copy that across. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do it so that we don't end up clashing with all of this over here, which is stuff that I'm going to show you later. Let's just get that all out of the way. And then we've definitely got a nice clear 8 bar loop going on here. Okay. So 1. Let's highlight that. Control D. Okay, so I've copied that across there. Okay. And now we're back to the 8 bar loop again. So you can see there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's put 1, let's do something like that. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll do that. We're going to drag that across there, do it again. actually probably do that the other way around, and then do that. So it goes the other way round. So now you see it like this. It's a very basic riff, but you can hear it's got those elements of hard house in it, and this is what a lot of hard house does. It has stabs hitting on the beat, off the beat, off the beat, on the beat, off the beat, on the beat, off the beat. So bam, 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 bam. You know, all that cheeky fun stuff that you used to get. The cheeky fun stuff that you get in hard house. I've got to stop saying used to get. You get in hard house. You know, it's got you start to get that bounce, that drive, that fun factor in it, and that's one way in which you can start to layer some sort of stabby groove over your loop. So and then once you've got something that sounds the way you want it to, let's just get that the right colour. I will then start looking at EQing it. Get a little quick EQ on there. So let's go to the EQ8. I'm going to try and keep with the stock plugins. So EQ8. Excuse me. And what I'm doing is I'm giving it a high pass because I want to take off all of the low end that's going on there. I want to remove any of that low end frequencies, all the sound that's going on the low end that could clash with my bass line. So I'm going to pull that up to around about, that could be, I mean, with mid-range sounds, you know, you don't want to be chopping off too much. You don't want to lose that energy because you can end up with too weaker stabs. So it's good to get it, you know, sit with around about 2 to 300 hertz taken off. Let's brine it up a little bit. Quite a dull stab, this particular one that I've chosen. And now the good thing about having this in a sampler like this that you've got down the bottom here is that you can then go back to your sounds and you can start to drop other sounds in. You know, any of these other stabs that are here. You know, all these other sounds in there. If you start to think, oh, do you know what? I don't think I like this. I don't think I like this one. But for now, we're going to use it just for the example. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of EQ going on. Now I want to give that. It's quite dry. There's no. I want to give it a little bit of reverb. You know. So I will go to. Let's go to the actual reverb of quickly that's in here. So you remember I was telling you about before about these send effects down here? Well, down here we've got the reverb channel and we've got a half decent reverb going on. So let's just give it a little bit of reverb, which is on which is on the send and return track on A, which is the first box over here on those two boxes that we showed you before. You see, as I'm dialing up the wet dry on there, and if I press tab I can go into the channel on the mixing desk and you can see here I've got the same thing going on. Here, put it down, turn it up, which again is one way of doing it. I personally don't use the sends as much as probably as I should, but well, I say I should. There's no right or wrong about this. I just like to go straight in to put in a reverb straight onto the effect from a plugin, and I do it that way. And I start to give it a bit of boost in there as well. But for now, we're just trying to give you some examples of how to get those mid-range sounds going, get you going with that. That is a quick, easy way of doing it. You know, get your stab sounds, start to put them in there, get a little bit of a groove going, and then you can start to get some question and answering going on. You know, as this one's grooving, another one could be, you know, call and response is what other people call it as well. Question and answer, call and response, both the same thing. But you know, for example, this is one I made earlier. And this is just a simple stab coming off a synth and an effect. The effect is like a squelchy stab. And as you can see here, I've put it on every other offbeat. And then below that, I had quite a cool sound on high, which is a really nice synth. A lot of people have probably got this already. So I like that sound. And I drew in my MIDI. And let's just highlight the 1 bar again. And what I did is I drew in this pattern. Okay. And then I put the squelchy stab with it. Okay. And then I put it with the track. So you can see there, I've done a similar process to what I've done here, but with a synth, where I found a sound on a synth, and I've put it in, and I've got an effect to go with it, which is almost like a little bit of call and response going on, because that's going dibba dibba dibba. The other one then goes whoa, dibba dibba whoa, dibba 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 whoa, dibba 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 whoa. So cool response, cool response, cool response. Is something you'll hear a lot in dance music, all dance music, trance, hard house, house. You know, call and response is something that gets that groove going, and it starts to create those little hooks that you get with music. You know, which is a good thing. So that's the first part about basically starting to put stabs in. Starting to put sounds in. Now I want to show you something else. Now there's something that started to really appeal to me probably about sort of 5 years ago, maybe a little further. Is people putting together producers and other producers and artists putting together sequenced sounds in pack for synths. And you can get some really, really cool sequences that are pre-made that you can then put in and manipulate. And that is something that I want to show you here, because in my track Power Junkie, I used quite a few ARPs, sequenced ARPs and things like that, just to build the track up. So I'm going to show you some of them here. Now this particular one here. Was on a Spire. I found it in a tech pack, so I tried to go away from sort of trance. I was searching on the internet for tech house, bass house, trap music, all these sort of things where people were putting together these packs with these really unusual sequence sounds, and they just pricked my ears up to them, and I thought, you know what, I think some of these sounds will sound really good in hard house. So I got the packs, and I put them onto my synths, and I started to play around with them, and I built up using a loop, just using an 8-bar loop. I started to build up sounds. So I'm going to show you how I built up those sounds in this particular part of the track. This is why now I've got all these bits over here on this other side. It's because these are this is what I wanted to show you. So it's an example of getting some more of those mid-range sounds going and start to fill your track out. Now I've said this to quite a few producers that I've been giving feedback to, that have come back to me on numerous occasions and asking me what was lacking in their tracks, and I said it was, it's mid-range sounds. I think you can fill out your track with some real nice grooves. I said, go and find some sequences and things like that, and start to mess. And remember, with sequences, you can put those sequences in, then you can bounce them down to audio, and you can chop them up as well. So they could all
be put together with your stabs that I've just shown you, and little sound effects and things like that. You know, they can all be put together to make your mid-range sounds and create the groove of your track. So what I had in here is I had the track, the bit that I've just shown you. If I've dragged these over, actually, I'll put it better if I show it like this. Let's drag those ones over. Okay, yeah. So this is the first one here. It's a sequence sound that I took and then I started to manipulate, inspire, messing around with some of the oscillators, removing the sounds that I didn't want inside it. Didn't want that. And got it to where I wanted it to be with sound. So that's an oscillator too. It's one note. It's driving on the same root note as the bass line. I then had another one here. Again, driving on the root note of the bass line. This is a bass sequence, and I removed a lot of the elements of the oscillator, and I love that little sound in it. So with that one and all together, and then I had a nice bass sound. Bass sound. Another nice stab, which I just put on the note there. You can see on the root note, and that's happening every 4 bars. And now all together. See how I'm starting to get some sort of groove on there, and this is really an interesting track, this one. But people were it certainly had its different elements in there which created it. So that is one. There's a couple of ways in which you could start to layer down your mid-range sounds, and I can show you riff after riff after riff after riff. I could show you melody after melody after melody. This is the point in the track where you've got to start getting creative within yourself. You've got to start to listen to sounds, listen to those mid-range sequences if you can find them, and start to get your stabs, start to get them to drive along, together. I'll just give you another example here. I said to you, I can show you example after example till I'm blue in the face until you lose the will to live. It comes down to now you've got to start getting creative. We can show you the tools, we can show you the methods, but you're the artist, you're the one that's got to get creative here. And that takes practice, but you've got to start somewhere, There are packs out there. I will say actually, there are packs out there where you can buy that will have riffs, pre-made riffs by artists. If you decide to get those packs, get the packs. Use them as inspiration, but then play with them. Don't keep them the same as what they were in the pack, because someone else can get that pack and use the same riff, and you don't want that. You don't want to be like someone else. Certainly, if it's if it's a riff that's really nice, and you go, yeah, I'll put that into my tune, and wow, that sounds amazing. And then another month down the line, somebody uploads a video and goes, listen to my new track, and it's got exactly the same riff in it. If you're going to use the packs and get those MIDI packs and playing around with them, then get them. They're great for inspiration, but don't keep them the same as what they are. I'll give you an example of this one on Power Junkie that, I got my 8-bar loop when I got my drive going, and as I showed you, as you've heard it. I then got a stabby sound from a synth. I really liked the sound of this. It was great. It had a great sound on it. If I turn it on. Just that. Doesn't that sound great? and I wrote this riff, and the riff sounds like this. Oh, those two are quite. You see, it's a really simple riff. It is, when you look at it, it's a really simple riff, but it's really catchy. It's bouncy. It's got that fun factor to it, you know. So when you put that over the track, you know, it's going bum 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 bum. It works with the track. It's got that hard house feel to it, and with hard house riffs, a lot of the time, you know, this is a fixed grid of 1 in 16. Normally, how I work with my riffs is 1 in 16 notes. Is the lowest I will go in the amount of notes per, and then I'll find another sound to go over the top of it to layer it up and create an even more intense sound with layering up another lead, you know. So if I put it onto the other one that I had, the other lead I had, this one, which is also quite nice. And I will come to that a little bit later on when we come to this riff, and I'll show you when I'll get into the point of layering down leads. Now, don't be afraid. Just experiment. And as I said to you, I can show you until I'm blue in the face of writing riff after riff after riff. You can see there exactly what makes that riff up. You can see it's 1 in 16 notes. You can see it's, it's very simple. It's hitting on the beat, mostly on the beat. Bum, 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 bum. You know, and creating what I showed you before with the other riff up here. A very simple riff. Everything starts from something very simple like this, and then start to evolve, start to play. Don't be afraid to go higher up the notes. You can see here, I'm going up the circle of fifths, and I'm going right up to the next octave. If I zoom in a bit more there, you can see I'm going right up to the next octave. I'm starting at that F sharp. I'm right up to that F sharp. I'm going up the whole octave. I'm playing around. To get that full fun factor. I've got fun factor in my riffs, which a lot of people know me for, is that fun factor in my riffs. And you put it over the track. Oh, let me turn off the other one so you can hear that playing. Here you go. Now, I pretty much got to this point with an 8-bar loop when I was writing this track. I put all these elements in. I'd put those sequence sounds that I'd found. I'd put those little stab elements in. I haven't turned those ones on either. My little and then I wrote this riff over the top, and I thought, well, that's the drop. That's my main lead. I like that. Let's grow on this, and that's what I'll show you in the next video. Is I'll start to show you arranging the track down and creating the whole build up of the first drop of the bass right up to the point where we get to the breakdown, and we'll start to really get into this now without starting to arrange the track, and you really should hopefully give you some more inspiration in your tracks. And again, these videos are for people that are starting out in hard house, and I hope they help you. Cheers, guys. Thank you.